This is a song based on a true story. The lady told me up in North Florida about how her family had to go making a little moonshine during the Depression to get by, and they had a brand name for their little elixir that they made. They called it Yellow Butter Moon.
Back a jug tonight, that yellow butter gold. Pull on two on that hard home brew, make it crazy as a load. It'll light a fire up inside you, make you step to a line and two. And let's tip back a jug tonight of that yellow butter moon, yellow butter moon. Shine down through me with the light so true. There's love and life and the burn and the bite of that yellow butter moon. My grandpa made corn liquor, he had a still back in the woods. He would have made his living from farming, but the times they weren't so good. Cause when you're married with 6 children, a lot of hungry mouths to feed, you do anything that you gotta just to give up what they need. Yellow butter moon, shine down through me with the light so true. There's love and life in the burn and the bite of that yellow butter moon. Now the sheriff and his deputies, they love Grandpa's corn squeeze brew. And thirst came way before duty, they better save on a jug or two. So when the revenue came calling one hot Florida night in June, he thought he had old Grandpa cornered, thought he'd treat him like a coon. But when he jumped up into that clearing, he must have felt like such a buffoon. 'Cause all he found was a paper label that read, yellow butter moon, shine down through me with the light so true. There's love and life in the burn and the bite of that yellow butter moon. Oh, there's love and life in the burn and the bite of that yellow butter moon.
I just was out in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, the first thought that came through your mind, I'm sure, was, what in the hell were you not there in this kind of weather? Well, I was lucky. I chased the bad weather up out of Florida, played some shows in Tennessee, and ran out across to Missouri and spent 4 days there at the Folk Alliance Conference, and then came back down through Tennessee and Mississippi and Georgia and into Florida. Played 2 shows on the way back, and the weather chased me back. So I didn't get any rain or snow at all, but I did bring it back, and I'm sorry. While I was out at the Folk Alliance Conference, this is the biggest trade show for folk artists in the world. It's over 3,500 people in 2 hotels showcasing in half-hour sets for 4 straight nights to as late as 3 or 4 in the morning, trying to convince radio stations to play your material and people to book you in different parts of the country. Dallas Allen runs the Kerrville Folk Festival out in Texas, and she had a booth down in the exhibit hall, and I happened by there and was talking to her, and she grabbed my hand and she shoved it in this jar. She says, "Take a slip of paper." Well, when Dallas says, "Take something," you take it. So I pull out the slip of paper. She says, now remember, this is Saturday afternoon, and I got 4 showcases in at about 3 o'clock that next morning. She says, "I want you to take a slip of paper and whatever's written on it, you write a song about that and come to breakfast tomorrow at 10 and play your song for the songwriter's breakfast." I said, Dallas, I got. She goes, no, I want to get this going. I need to get this going. I need people like you doing this. So I want you to do this. And I was mad. I walked off and I said, I'm not going to do that. Just no way. Well, I was sitting down, getting ready to watch another guy showcase, and that damn thing was in my pocket, and I was thinking about it. And suddenly it occurred to me, I had the song. So I went and wrote this daggone thing in about half an hour, and I played it the next morning at breakfast. And we'll see if I can still remember it. It's less than a month old. And this, I think, is the first time I performed it on stage.
Yes.
And it's certainly the first time for Ron. He just learned about half an hour
He
ago.
handed me a jar out there. He says, here, take this piece of paper. This new song in 5 minutes.
This is called Pieces of Mirror. Pieces of Mirror. Yeah. That's what was on the slip of paper. Could have been worse. The guy right behind me got happy ending. I'm afraid that I've been channeling my inner Eric Schwartz on that one. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
I never knew that story.
Can you do it, man?
I can hope.
Oh, my heart has been broken without reason or rhyme. Pieces of mirror gathered in time. If not for the memories, well, I'd never get through. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Hill country thunder rolls on alone. Wet winter weather chills to the bone. When my heart gets to aching, memories pull me through. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, pieces of life, pieces of shadow scattered by light. My heart's bound together with memories true. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Memories of loved ones, family and friends. Memories of good times I hope come again. With these memories beside me, oh, I always get through. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, each precious and bright, reflecting the love that you bring to my life. Ah, pieces of mirror, pieces of light, pieces of shadow scattered by the light. Oh, my heart's bound together with memories true. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. Pieces of mirror, reflections of you. What's that? I'm sorry? Yeah, I played it next morning at breakfast with about 2.5 hours sleep. Yes, I'm not glad I got up with 2.5 hours sleep, but whatever. I grew up. Thank you. I grew up in a farmhouse over in Lake County, Florida. There's another Spears out there somewhere. Where are you at, Canoe Man? He might have snuck off. He used to live right down the road from me, but we weren't related. And we didn't know it till we met here like 3 years ago. I think everybody's got a place that when someone says the word home, that's the place you think of. Mine was at that little farmhouse back there in Leesburg on Highway 44. This is called This Old House. This old house is still and silent. Nobody lives here anymore. It's been a long time since a footstep fell upon these wooden floors. 4 generations stood right where I stand. The roots of a family growing strong up from this sand. And this old house, once upon a time, was a place where everything I loved had its common tie. And this old house that I lost so long ago, it is still the place I dream about when I dream dreams of home. All the walls are stained and faded, dust is settling everywhere, yet everything is still just where it was the last time I was here. But now out in the front yard near that old oak tree I climbed, there is a for sale sign that tells my heart this home's no longer mine. And this old house, once upon a time, was a place where everything I loved had its common tie. And this old house that I lost so long ago, it is still the place I dream about when I dream dreams of home. Weathered walls that I learned how to love, learned to trust in human kindness, and that grace flows from above. Oh, I can still hear their voices though they seem so far away. I still see their faces when I close my eyes and pray. One last time I wander through these rooms, and everything I see just flickers like a silver screen of 1,000 memories. 'Cause this old house, once upon a time, was a place where everything I loved had its common tie. And this old house that I lost so long ago, it is still the place I dream about when I dream dreams of home. Ah, this old house, this old house. capo. It's in here somewhere. You know, these are very handy. They raise the pitch of the guitar so that you can sing in different keys. If you have two, you can attach one to your body and change the pitch that you sing in. If you can't figure it out, I ain't going to tell you. You can't travel around the country and claim to be a itinerant troubadour folk singer less than you got you a train song. Well, as they say up in the country that I come from, I got her. Back in 1901, that was just after the real turn of the century, not the fake one we just had. They ran a race from Savannah, Georgia down to Jacksonville, Florida, in order to award the mail contract for the coming year. That's how all the mail contracts were let out in those days. Very strange contract. Every year, whoever had track along the route they needed the delivery made, they ran a timed race, and they got the contract for 1 year if they ran it the fastest. Well, in 1901, the plant line and the seaboard line were racing. Tortoise and hare deal. The seaboard line thought they had it sewed up because the plant engine broke down and had to be pushed off onto a spur track, and a new engine started from the start all the time with the clock running. Way, way, way behind. But what the seaboard line didn't count on was the engineer in that train, a guy named Albert Gage. Old boy knew what he was doing. Wasn't his first rodeo. When they crossed the Florida-Georgia line coming into Jacksonville, they set a new land speed record at 120 miles an hour. In 1901, that was moving. That's just flow of traffic on I-75 these days. But back then, that was cooking. This here is called steam train.
And that old engineer was pushing her throttles like a mother bird trying to teach her babies to fly. Now steam train running down the railroad track. Now steam train, you're pushing throttles ahead, boy, don't you dare pull them back. You run 120 miles an hour, you know you got a steam train flying down the railroad track. Take it, Ronnie.
see if my fingers will stay warm enough to grip this pick for one more song.
Hemingway.
Would you really like to hear Hemingway? All right. Yeah. We'll change gears.
Oh no! Oh no! No, Mr. Bill! Not the gear changer!
That will keep me from having to retune. I was going to tune down to.
Don't keep me from having to play.
Well, you're not going to get paid.
No, I'll be getting paid the same amount.
Yeah. Well, good point. That's union scale around here. Back in when Katrina hit in 2005, I think most songwriters in this part of the country tried to write something about that. And I tell people that I had a couple of ideas that I worked on for a little while, but I realized that they sucked. So I put the idea aside, and I had picked up a book later on about the history of hurricanes in North America, and learned some things about the most powerful hurricane to ever hit, which struck almost 70 years to the day prior to Katrina, down in the Florida Keys, at what is now Islamorada, back then was Upper and Lower Matacumbi Key. That hurricane came ashore just after midnight on Labor Day of 1935, packing sustained winds, not gust, sustained winds of over 200 miles an hour. Storm surge is 17.5 feet in a place that's only 2 inches above sea level. And it came ashore right where there were 650 World War I veterans camped building the overseas highway next to Flybear's Railroad. And the folks that were in charge, just like Katrina in the Gulf Coast, just flat failed. And by noon the next day, over 400 of them were dead. Ernest Hemingway was their drinking buddy on weekends down in Key West, and he came up in his fishing boat to find survivors and didn't find any. He got an investigation started. He wrote articles in the New Yorker and Vanity Fair, and got Congress cranked up for about 2 months, just like Katrina. And just like Katrina, they got distracted with something else, and nothing ever really came of it. But back in those days, before we started naming hurricanes, we now remember that one is Hemingway's hurricane. Hemingway lived down in Old Key West, and he drank in the bars with Uncle Sam's best. When he heard how they died, he flew off in a rage. His mighty pen roared at how they've been betrayed. His mighty pen roared at how they've been betrayed. 'Cause it was Labor Day, 35. Pressure was falling on a rising tide. South by southeast, great wind with no name. Now is Hemingway's hurricane. Remembered now is Hemingway's hurricane. Now who left you there and who knows why? Old Papa demands with a fiery eye. Careless or callous, no less to blame. And after 70, relive the shame. And remember Hemingway's hurricane. The boys that fought World War I, times upon depression brought. New Deal John on sitting down that train 'cause she's starting to blow. Too little, too late, well there's nowhere to go. Just shacks and shanties of plywood and tin. Our Lord, watch over the souls of these men. Our Lord, watch over the souls of these men. Now who left you there and who knows why? Old mama demands with a fiery eye. Now was it careless or callous? No less to blame. And after 70 relived her shame. And remember Hemingway's hurricane. Then in 2005 another killer came close, and the whole Gulf Coast drowns as the levees let go. Now was it careless or callous, more whitewash and blame? And after 70 we get more of the same. And remember Hemingway's hurricane. 'Cause it was Labor Day, 35. Pressure was falling on the right.